Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I don't know if you're here for this one. Hopefully you are. I know we're getting it started a little bit late, so I'm going to have to make up some time here. I am from North New Jersey, so we will be going rapid voice here. So hopefully we'll get through this pretty quickly. So what are we doing? Where did my checkbox assessment go? We're all doing assessments. We're all doing all kinds of fun stuff, and we want to figure out how this relates to ransomware and different things within our environments. So what are we talking about? CIS controls, MITRE attack, the CIS RAM, and how that relates to all relate together. So CIS RAM is the risk assessment model method, which helps us identify all the risks that we have within our organization, specific to our organization. And then, as the gentleman was just talking before, the MITRE attack is a great tool to figure out from a technologist point of view, what can I do to stop attacks? What can I do to stop and help my environment? So here's the agenda. What do technologists do? I'm going to tell you that what you already know, right? So what are the issues facing technologists today, potential issues, putting it all together, and then we might have some questions at the end depending on time. So who am I? We're all been here for a long time, 25 years in the industry, doing everything from, DNS, DHCP admin, all the way up to what I do today, which is, forensics and assessments and all these kind of things. If you want to know more about me, you can probably go on a dark web. All my stuff's there, just like all of our stuff. Technologists, what do you do, right? You're all here. You're all extremely bright people. We've all been doing this for some time. We design environments. We fix issues. We do all these fun things that are oh so easy. And, at the snap of a finger, we can do all this kind of work. So there's a lot of things that a technologist does. There's a lot of things that we're responsible for. And it's all, I won't say it's down on the bottom of stuff, but it all does start here, right? If we don't build the stuff, if we don't have the things involved, if we don't have the network ready, we don't have the servers ready, nothing gets done, no business runs. So it's very important for us as technologists to get all these things right. No stress, no pressure, right? The last one for me, reporting, I can see my boss is sitting right there. He is absolutely nod his head to this one. But reporting is the worst thing, the hardest thing, the most difficult thing to get right, especially when everybody has their different slant on doing reporting. And we're going to get to that, all this stuff, how really to help bridge the gap between technologists, risks, leadership, and all the compliance things that go in between. Okay? I have issues. No, I didn't let my wife write this slide in any way, shape, or form. But we do have issues, right? If we didn't have issues, we wouldn't have jobs, right? If everything worked perfectly, that'd be great. If you're at the company and all your stuff works perfectly, let me know because I'd love to model it. But the issues that we have are relatability, priorities, and reporting. How do we do all of these things from vulnerabilities that we have, right? So we get vulnerabilities every day. We get all of this information hammered at us. I mean, we can go down this hallway and every single one of those people out there have a different console with a different number, with a different priority, with a different piece of information in their own little slant and how they're going to do it. All great information, but it's all got to be categorized. It's all got to be pulled together. It's all got to be identified and reported on. So when you're sitting there and you're getting all these things from the console and you're like, what the hell do I go after first? Where do I do this? And most of us take a vulnerability. It says critical, hammer that nail. That nail is done, critical, done, move along. How did that really help me though? Well, it helped me close that vulnerability. In the long scheme of things, how did that really help me? And we're going to kind of go over that stuff, right? So priorities, you get the MITRE, the CVSS, you get all these numbers, you get all this stuff thrown at you. And then, like I said, reporting, which is difficult. And then how does it all relate to a threat, a threat attack vector? How does this all relate to ransomware or privilege misuse or lateral movement or all these kind of things that are out there today that we are all worried about? And in leadership and management are looking at, and they say, I was at a conference and they were talking about ransomware. How are we protected against ransomware? And you go, well, we've got, EDR, we've got all kinds of cloud, we've got a WAF, we got all kinds of fun stuff out there. And we're getting reports for all that thing. So we know that all of those things are protected, right? So those are the things that we all look at, what we do on a daily basis. Oh, there we go. I have more issues. So again, my wife did not help me write this one. She saw this and she had some input, but we didn't let her hear. So, how do we tackle our vulnerabilities? What do we go after first? What are the ones that I gotta, worry about the most? We are all, we're all human. We can't work 24/7 as much as people think you can. There's got to be a priority put in place. There's got to be things that you do. And we want to make these decisions based on risk, right? So we've all been doing all this for a while. We all have these risk reports and all this kind of stuff that's there. And leadership wants to relate all this stuff back to risk. Now, as a technologist, like I said, I've been doing this for a while. I don't always look at risk, right? I look at, there's a nail, let me hammer that nail or close that hole or whatever it is and get that done and be able to move forward with my day so that we can get all that stuff kind of identified and move on. Then the last bullet here, talk to leadership about these risks. Like I'm saying, your leaders are going to come back to you and say, how am I protected? How am I controlling the, intrusions? How am I controlling any kind of ransomware that goes in there? And we're going to go through this. We're going to kind of show you how these things relate from a technologist view all the way up. Okay. How many people have gotten this absolutely dreaded ticket at 3:00 in the evening, right? Friday afternoon. Yeah. We see a few over here, right? 3:00. Hey, something's wrong. My machine's acting real slow. I've got this wonderful red screen that tells me that I need to pay a Bitcoin to such and such over at such and such, but I'm just going to shut my machine off. Well, that sparks a whole nother thing. And then we get the Batman boom, right? So we're all now invested in what's going on. We just got hit with ransomware. It's going through the environment like wildfire. We don't know what's going on. So we're here being able to control, the ransomware running through our environment. It's 3:00. Our weekend is shot, right? So we know we're going to be here for a while. But luckily enough, I've got one button that just got rid of ransomware. So we're great. So we just fixed that in 30 seconds, which is awesome. Then we get this, like a brick to the face. That's what it feels like. I don't know how many people have gone through a ransomware attack. I myself have done a bunch of them. We do incident response here at HALOCK. So I've done, I don't know, I can't even, 50, 60, whatever it is. There's nothing more troubling, upsetting, humbling than getting hit with a ransomware attack on at any level. Because you think you're doing pretty good, and then you get hit in the face with a brick like this with ransomware, and then you have all these questions that you're really worried about. Where have they been? What have they done? What are they going for? Where are they within my network? Have I stopped them? Well, we hit the button, so we did stop them. And then, hey, I just had an audit done. They just went through my whole environment. This audit team came in and just went through the whole thing and said, yep, you're good. We got all the checkbox. Congratulations. You went through and did all that kind of stuff. So we're questioning ourselves, right? We're all questioning ourselves. What did we miss? And then, leadership's going to come back and say, hey, what did we miss? I want to know. I got to have that after action report, right? So we get through that. And then we have the kind of the threat mitigation, right? We know from all those questions that were just on that screen, there is nothing. There is nothing in this, out of anything that we've done. The gentleman that was up here just before was saying it. There's no magic elixir, right? There's nothing, we're going to do one thing and that's going to protect us from everything. And I heard a guy talking earlier this afternoon. He was talking about the same thing. He's like, there's no one thing that can fix all of our problems. We have a multitude of things, right? Defense in depth. These are not new concepts, right? These are all been here for quite a while. Due diligence, right? Duty of care. We're making sure that we're doing the right things based on a number, on a process that we've gone through. tracking and reporting, always tracking, reporting, vulnerabilities, issues, make sure we're tracking all that stuff. And then, like I said, duty of care, this mission objectives and obligations. We want to be able to say that we've done enough to make sure that our environment is protected, right? Either by process, procedure, or capabilities or what have you. Okay. Then it goes to where do I start, right? Where do I start from all this stuff? My environment has a risk assessment. We've done risk assessments every year, sometimes twice a year, depending on if we're launching a new application or we're going for a new, company maybe is bringing in to the fold. We've all done these acquisition, risk assessments and bringing them in and trying to figure out how they work. And then how does this all relate to me, right? How does this all, as a technologist, how does this all relate? How does this all come together that I've got all this information? Where should the dollars go, right? Not only are we sleep deprived, but we've only got a finite number of dollars that we could spend. Where the heck does it go, right? I mean, we're all out there. We'll sell you everything. We want every dollar that can go out there to make sure that we're helping you protect your environment. And these dollars are, they're precious. We want to make sure we're putting them in the right spot to make sure that you're protected from any of these, like the guy just had before, all that bad stuff that was going on. So again, what about all these audits? I've done all these audits all the time. We're going to go through kind of how we see where audits really go, how risk assessments and technology information like MITRE ATT&CK all kind of relate back. We all answer the questions, right? Just how many people have gone through these risk assessments? They've come to you and said, tell me how you do your job. Tell me how you do your protection, right? Everybody's gotten those questions. And sometimes they feel a little intrusive, a little antagonistic, right? They're going to come after you. They want to understand your environment. So it makes it a little, put you on your heels a little bit, making sure that you're checking all this stuff off. And then how do I relate this to a meaningful mitigation approach? So risk assessment, we've all seen the risk assessments, and it comes down and it says, this is a risk. And you're like, okay, that's a risk. That's great. How does that relate to me as a technologist, a guy or a person that's pushing the buttons down on the consoles and making sure that all the vulnerabilities are closed down? There's no more, as they say, no more red on my screen, no more yellow either. We want to make sure all that stuff is gone. We want to make sure that all that is put to the side and closed. But that is just our view, right? Our console, our C, what we know, what we do. And then how do we put this all together and continually improve security? Well, I'm going to tell you, hopefully, and show you, because there are little tools here that help you go through this. So putting it all together, right? We talked about CIS RAM version 2. There's 3 implementation groups. There's 1, 2, and 3. 1, fairly easy. 2, a little bit more difficult. 3, give me a call, because it is pretty technical. It gets real deep into the whole risk assessment process. But if you haven't done a risk assessment, I mean, we've got the HALOCK group downstairs. Happy to talk to you about anything that has to do with risk assessments or any of that stuff with CIS RAM. And then the MITRE ATT&CK. This is an open tool, right? I'm sure almost everybody's talked about it in some form or fashion today, because it is actually pretty powerful. It helps you identify where things are and how, from a technical perspective, to get things closed, done, remediated. So it's a super, super helpful little tool. So these two put together start with the risk assessment, which gives you, from a leadership down, an understanding of what all these things are from a risk, and gives you a number. It gives you absolute fantastic data to understand how your environment is doing. And then MITRE ATT&CK coming up from a technologist view that says that these are the nuts and bolts of what's going on. So the CIS RAM is a evaluating risk. It it is a tool that is, quantitative, right? It gives you a number that is based on actual data, the hit index and all these kind of things that identifies how you are within the world, basically against your peers, right? If you're in manufacturing, if you're in telecoms, whatever, there's a category for you, and you can tell how well you're doing against your peers within the industries. It also helps you identify and draw a line, right? Where is my threshold for acceptable, put down here, and unacceptable risks, right? You can't fix everything, like we've just talked about before. You can't fix everything. You got to take your battles and figure out what is your most high priority things and go after and fix those. And I'm sure if you go back to your governance teams, your compliance teams, they have a list of all those things that are listed there in their environment, in a spreadsheet that's helping you figure out what that risk is. There's a big gap between what the technologist does and what leadership and the governance teams have, in my opinion, that helps them identify this stuff. That's where that duty of care, due care process comes into place, that you are identifying these risks. And then together, these two principles, concise and defendable. There is we're going to get to this later, but there's, a word that is very difficult to define. And there's been many people that have. I don't know if there's any legal folks in here, but reasonable. What the heck does reasonable? That's one of the things that is being defined here. So we make sure we take a look at that stuff. Okay. So CIS RAM also helps us identify across all of these different interested parties how well or how we can communicate these risks and understand them. Everybody, you can see from this chart, everybody has a different slant on what a risk and how it relates to me. So they want to know exactly what these things are, understand them, so that when I'm going from IT security up to regulators, there's a communication, right? There's a idea of we could talk the same language. Now, me personally, you get into the attorneys and judges, it gets a little squirrely in there. And that's where this reasonable comes in, right? Being able to understand that I have done, as a technologist, as a company, for my company, I have done a reasonable job to make sure that we are all secure, that we've taken all of the necessary steps to make sure that we're, protected from ransomware, malware, lateral movement, privilege misuse, all these kind of fun things. So those are all the things that are your challenges. And then here's kind of how CIS RAM closes these gaps, right? So you've got the executives and attorneys and compliance and regulators, and then the customers, right? So we're all working for our customers. So being able to have this appropriate protection that goes on. So when we talk to our customers and they say, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" I says, "Well, we have appropriate, controls. We have everything in place." I mean, we've all gone through third-party assessments, either given them or taken them, and these are things that pop up on there as well, so that we can identify that stuff. Okay. MITRE attack. It is a open source, website that you could go to, has all the information that you want to have as far as really from a technologist perspective, being able to identify what's going on in the world, right? And how it relates to compromises that are out there, how it relates to issues that are going on within the global space. And they, like the gentleman just said before, they keep it up to date. All that information's in there. It's all numbered. It's all by attack vectors and everything like that. And that's the key, is attack vectors, right? How does this relate back to me as far as an attack vector, right? And then like ransomware, like privilege misuse, like lateral movement, all these kind of things that are out there, malware. How does that relate back? And MITRE attack helps us figure out from a technologist's perspective what that information is, how we can control it. Okay. So this is this is the screen. I don't know when you first. Whoa, no. When you first go look at this site, it's daunting. I mean, there's a lot of data there. There's a lot of stuff that you can really go down the proverbial rabbit hole, right? Looking for information and being able to kind of cross-reference, and this one goes here and that one goes there, but this is a piece of it and that's a piece of it. And how do I really understand what's going on there? And I'm not going to tell you how to use MITRE ATT&CK or any of that kind of stuff right now, but we can talk about it or have questions after the session. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Does that keep blinking in and out? Or is that me? Oh, okay. So I'm not blacking out over here, am I? That would be bad. Yeah, right? Yeah. No copper taste, nothing. I'm good, yeah. No, that would be bad. Where the hell was I? Sorry. So MITRE ATT&CK information. You guys can go out there and see it. And I recommend that you go out there and you look at it and make sure that you understand that this is a helpful tool. And it all goes back to different, capabilities and vectors and stuff like that. And we're going to talk about them as we go through here. We only got like another, 75, 85 slides. So we should be perfect. Oh, you think I'm kidding? That's the funny part. No. Actually, we're getting pretty close to being done here. What time is it? 5:32. So no, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Sorry. So I did a run. Just side note, I did a run through this. What was Monday? I think it was, or something like that. And I think it took me like an hour and 10 minutes. So I chopped this down a lot for you guys, just for you guys. I mean, looking out for all of you. Normally I'd be up here for hours and hours. Yeah, I'm surprised they gave me a microphone, to tell you the truth. So added perspective, right? Risk-based assessments, it's all there. We model against the most common threat against your company. And that's a great thing about that. MITRE ATT&CK, CIS RAM, they're tools that we can use that customize for your company, right? It's got to get down. I got to go does anybody remember Buck Rogers? Remember Twicky, right? Does anybody else feel like Twicky with these things? Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Because I'm like looking at everybody and I'm like, that guy's he's breathing. So we can, check that out. So the risk-based evaluate how your company implements and operates different, controls, recognize security, and then, God, I hate this thing, develop a report, right? Technologists, I don't, maybe I'm on my own on this one, but developing reports, like I said before, is just brutal. Give me a good night, all night in a, data center, racking and stacking systems. You're happy, right? Yeah, over there. Just do it, get it done, go back home, have your, it's usually at that time it's like ramen or something, at that point in time. But yeah, have that. You got your, it's summertime and you got your winter jacket on in the data center because it always is the fan, the holes are right below your legs and blowing right up. Yeah. And you guys know what I'm talking about. So this is that's the, basic stuff, right? Risk assessment, so basic. But having that risk assessment done is key, but it still doesn't relate back to a technologist. How does a technologist really relate to these risks, right? I know that you could look at them and see that there's a risk that's related to privileged account management. Pam, I'm going to hammer that nail down. I'll put in X, whatever it is, I don't want to give any things out, but put something out there that I can use to, control privileged access management. And then I know that is hopefully closed. So what we've done is we've kind of created this extended threat-based report, right? It's basically a mapped attack threat matrix. It takes all the stuff from the CIS controls. Hopefully you guys are familiar with them. If not, we can talk about those. But the CIS-based controls, and then puts them all through kind of a threat matrix that melds the CIS stuff, the MITRE, and the NIST stuff, and anything else that you want to put in there, melds that all together and gives you, from a technologist all the way up to a leadership view of your environment, based on threats, ransomware, malware, all these kind of things. So it helps you really zone in on your threats that are going to affect you guys in the biggest way so that you can close them, right? That's what we're all here for. That's what we're trying to do. So this is this is RAM. This is CIS RAM. This is the document that you could download. You can go to CIS right now, go to the RAM section. You could download this whole thing. Yeah, it really is a pretty powerful tool. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes behind it. But if you need help, and you can give us a call. HALOCK, we're down in the booth downstairs there. We'd be happy to help you with any of this stuff. Actually, we co-authored, not to that, but we co-authored this with CIS. So we've got some skin in the game on this one. But you could see from here, you've got your likelihood scores. These are how likely is this going to happen to you, right? Relate directly to you and your industry, and then gives you all these kind of explicit numbers and gives you this risk score at the end. You know, they say, hey, let's get to 8, let's get to 9. We want to be 10s. What does that mean, right? This is not a maturity model. You can see that it is in there kind of stuff, but this is a risk score based on hard proven data that you can rely on, and based on your environment, how those, that's going to bother me, how those scores are. So being able to control that, understand that, put that all into a document that is then, the dreaded word, reportable, to be able to document all that information. And all these risks are based on CIS controls. You see the first and second columns, what those CIS controls are. And you put ISO or whatever you want in there, but being able to identify those risks and quantify those risks and give them a number that we all like to see. Okay? So going forward, what we did is we modeled these attacks and the attack stages to each one of these controls. So you could see if it stops blinking. I don't know. I wonder if that's my machine that might be doing that. No, I was doing it before. Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah, true. There's this little box down here. It's actually showing the presentation. So the attack model. So the CIS RAM with the attack model input into this thing. So you're like, well, now we're starting to make this map. We're making a map from the risk assessment that we've done. Everybody's done them. They're all sitting in there somewhere. Governance and compliance is reviewing them earnestly. And then we're taking that and saying, okay, technologist, now we're mapping that to a specific control, to a specific attack stage, to a specific function for a specific threat attack that's going on. You got that? See if it's a little cable. Did I kick something as I was walking up?
I'd imagine it's going to be on this end because it would be all the screens if it was over there, but you can keep going.
Yeah, all right, sorry.
Let's see if I can make sure that it's tight or something.
It'll all go out now. I'll just turn my screen around. We can do that. So the CIS RAM, this is, it looks like, oh, there's a bunch of white space and stuff like that. And if you looked at these things in earnest, and there are controls mapped to each one of those different stages. So you can figure out from this map, and we're going to make it a little bit easier for you, where your weak points are, so to speak, from a risk perspective, based on all the attack stages that are out there, from initial triage to all these kind of stuff, to control, being able to identify those things, being able to pinpoint where you have to identify dollars, time, and risk. So you make sure all that stuff is there. So we put it into a nice little document.
I don't know. I just try to touch a few wires to see if it would help.
Oh, it did move. Okay. Sorry. Wow. Nice job. Thank you.
I think I just tried to tighten the connection, but it didn't feel loose.
Oh.
Either way, if that works, that works.
Well, if it's anything like my TV's at home, it's my kids did it. So, Alexa, turn on. No, that's all my TVs. So this is the attack model. So the thing that we just saw here, right? Oh, don't touch anything, Steve. Don't touch it, damn it. Yeah, right. Can you put your finger on that? So this model here identifies exactly, all the things that are there. And then when we go to this, leadership likes to see this. Upper management likes to see this. This is a quick view of where I am possibly vulnerable. Right? It has all the attack stages on top. It has the functions on the left, and then it has every control and every spot that I would be vulnerable. And you have this chain, right? Attack chain that goes through from the left to the right. And I can stop or break this chain or this attack, threat by, zeroing out these things, turning them all green, making sure that they're mitigated in some way, shape, or form. But now, like I've said, I've got the risk here. It's identified because it's given me this mapping that goes back, and that was the first CIS control, CIS RAM, has me all the risks that are then mapped to specifically to a MITRE attacked a threat that are then going against CIS controls that can then mitigate the things that I have to do from a technologist point of view. So now we've gone from leadership all the way down to technologist to have an action plan that actually makes us or helps us get more secure. So there's a language that's being spoken between from the top to the bottom, which is nice. These are all the unacceptable risks. Obviously, it's the stoplight, right? It's red, green. Green is good, but red is bad. And this one is specifically for ransomware. So if a executive comes to you or manager comes to you or whoever comes to you and says, third-party assessment comes to you, how are you guys protected against ransomware? You say, here's my model. Here is what I have. Here's all the things that I have that are based on all of my risks that have been identified, all the controls that we utilize. Here is my map. Obviously, there's a lot of red and yellow on this one, but your goal is to basically make sure that it's broken in some form or fashion so that you're controlling anything that's not, from green to red that goes all the way across. So pretty decent here with the delivery stuff, closing this down, but there's a lot of red on here, and then you can start making decisions on where it is within your environment. Now, the great thing about this is you could create these maps for each one of the different attack vectors, malware, all that stuff. So you can see each one of these in a sheet, a deck, or whatever you want to put them into, but they're quick, they're readable, and then you can identify, if you overlay the stuff, where are all my commonalities? So my commonalities are, let's say it's, in internal recon, I got protect, it's, control 12, whatever that, I think it says 12. So control 12. Now, if I go look at all of my attack vectors, that's control 12 for all of them. So if I hit control 12, I'm making a huge impact to my risk, to my capabilities of controlling or protecting my environment from any kind of maliciousness. Okay, so here's kind of the MITRE attack stuff, right? Ransomware, malware, these are just an example of them, not all of them. Insider privilege use, target intrusion, persistent external attacks. Persistent external attacks, that's interesting, right? Because it doesn't like the University of Michigan just continuously and Shodan and all those things, just they're attacks. I consider them attacks because they're just nuisance. So these are the attacks and they're directly related to these attacks so that you can go back to MITRE and say, how the heck do I do that? Not only do you have the control, but now you can go back to MITRE and say, MITRE, how do I remediate myself against each one of these attacks? And there's a descriptive process that's put there that helps me identify that. So from a technologist point of view, in a governance leadership point of view, we're all kind of rowing in the same direction now because they're looking at risk. I'm closing things that are related to risk, and I'm identifying all those things based on the attack, MITRE attack model, but also those things are specifically descriptive in there so I can go after them. And here's kind of what what a report would look like, right? What this would look like from I can give this to somebody in a more descriptive way. Obviously, the red, green, yellow, that's great for putting on the first page. But when somebody says, well, what is that? What's behind that? I want to know what's behind it. This is behind that. There's an analysis, a priority, safeguards, all these things that can be put into place to control, mitigate, lessen, let's say, your risk profile within your environment and be able to, kind of make sure that you're more secure. Like I said before, there's no magic elixir, right? There's nothing that's going to want it. But this will at least help you identify what's going on, help you identify how you can control this stuff. And again, it's conversation between technologists. I mean, you probably don't have direct conversations mostly, but with technologist governance, but you're all looking at the same thing in a different way, but all meaning the same thing. Right? So how does this all relate? How have audit assessments helped me? They're not enough. I really just don't think they're enough. Giving me a number, giving me a risk that says, hey, this is it, just quite isn't enough. I think we need to go further. I think we need to make these things more descriptive, put more teeth, put more knowledge behind it. The gentleman, I hate to keep bringing the gentleman up, but he was talking about the AI stuff. I mean, this world is moving, and this world is moving fast. I've got 2 kids in college, and they're talking to me about all the AI stuff and all the stuff that they're using. There's kids are, they've got a way. There's like this tap app, and they've linked AI to it's a trivia game. So they've linked AI to the trivia game, so they all win every time. I'm like, well, that's pretty inventive. Yeah. Well, I'm from Illinois. It's just down, I know what, don't you have to say it. I know. But my daughter goes to ISU. So ISU has this game, and they play other colleges. So ISU is in the Final Four. They did it like NCAA. They beat Notre Dame, Clemson, Auburn, and there's 2 other schools. But I think that they're have an advantage. I think they got some pretty smart kids down there. But from that perspective, audits just aren't enough, right? They just don't go all the way through to make sure we do that. We need to do more. We need to have more descriptive. We have more tools involved to be able to help us identify all of these things. Now, you looked at the spreadsheet. There was, reasonable. There was reasonable in there. There was CIS RAM. All these kind of things. All these tools, right? And you're like, well, that's great. What do I do with all this stuff? Well, you can use the CIS RAM. It's a spreadsheet. Keep the spreadsheet going. But there's also a product that we have. It's called Reasonable Risk. And you can go, and we're right downstairs, right in the middle of everything. Go talk to those guys. They have a whole plan of how to identify all these risks, map all these risks, report all these risks, which is my favorite because it makes the report, and actually helps you identify all these things and work on them, work through them. Oops. Has anybody else been hitting this spin button? I have like no money left. I've hit spin like 9,000 times. I didn't realize it took your money away. Well, not real money, this digital money. Well, it might be real money. Who knows? Yeah. Maybe that's why my phone's going off. My wife's texting me. So what have you done for me lately, right? Identify risks, MITRE attack stages. All these, we've identified all these things that help us. We've mapped it back to analysis and performed by attack stage, which is soup to nuts, brings you back and gets you all that information that we've averaged an unacceptable risk and calculated all that stuff across all of these stages, right? All the MITRE attack stages, we can do them. And just to be clear, I know I don't have like a demonstration of it, but it's not something you have to really create. It actually does it kind of automatically, automagically, I should say. So all that stuff is in there, and you can be able to utilize that. So again, reporting is kind of done for you, which is really, really nice. And this second to last bullet, one control, like I said before, may be across multiple attack vectors. So you go after one, we're talking about dollars, we're talking about time. You've got dollars and time right there that you can go after and make sure that you're protected. And then determining controls significant impact and reducing the risk of an attack, right? That's why we all have a job, let's say, right? So that's what you want to do. We want to reduce our risk of an attack. And, we want to make the other guy be hesitant to come after us because it's just too damn hard. Make it hard, make it defense in depth, make them be able to jump through hoops. Okay. Are there any questions that I can't answer? I mean, any questions that you want me to answer? No? How did I do? No. Well, thanks that. I just wanted to. 10 minutes. Not too bad. No, again, I'm going to be downstairs. Eric Leach sitting right here. He basically did most of this work that I'm presenting on, and that's how it should be, right? So let's face it that way. But if you have any questions, our whole team is down there on the first floor right in the middle. We're HALOCK. I thank you so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thanks.